from a long absence, folks, if you don't know it, I was out of action for like 2 months. I fractured my knee, and I wasn't even walking. I was in a wheelchair because I didn't want to get another operation. I figured, let me see if we can heal this the natural way. And knock on wood, so far it's held up. I've been out of a wheelchair only 2 weeks. I did 9 weeks in a wheelchair. Not fun to do. But hopefully it holds and I don't have to have another knee replacement. Anyway, I decided to come back, do my show. I missed my show. You know, I thought about retiring, but I said, I can't retire yet. It's only 32 years. I got a couple years left in me. So I said, I'm going to bring back one of my favorite guests today. And he used to be the mayor of Johnston, Rhode Island for years. And he retired, but I missed the guy, so I had to bring him back. Mayor Joe, how are you?
Very honored to be here.
Nice to see you.
Same here. Thank you for having me on. And
Joe Polisena.
And I'm glad you're doing well with your knee. I mean, you know, being laid up like that is tough. You know, it really is. You don't realize it. And you don't realize it, too, when I see people that are parking in what they call a handicap spot.
Right.
You know, that bothers me.
Right.
That bothers me. When I was in the center, we even increased the fines and everything. But you don't realize it till you need it.
Yep.
You know, God forbid something happens. But I'm glad to see you're doing well.
Speaking of because that bothers me too, and I have one, but I don't use it unless I'm really hurting.
Sure.
And I was at Home Depot one night, and there was this beautiful car. It was an Audi, but the expensive one, the Audi 8, which is a $100,000 car, whatever. It was parked, taking 4 spots.
That's
it was covering parts of 4 spots.
That's nasty.
So I said something to the kids getting the chairs on the carts back in. I said, why don't you tell the manager about this?
Sure.
So they call the cops on them. This is in Providence.
Yep.
So I left them. I go inside. I'm going to talk to the guy in the appliance section who I know. And I go to him and I'm talking to him about it. I said, you know, what an ignorant person. Not only one, he didn't take one, he didn't take 2, he took 4 parking spots right at the door.
That's awful.
While I'm talking to him, this guy comes over, this big guy comes over, he goes, are you the one complaining about the parking? I said, yeah. Why, is that your car? He goes, yeah. I go, what gives you the right to park before? Oh, I don't want anybody scratching my car.
Hey.
I go, I should have called the cops on you. They wouldn't do nothing. I go, nah, I think they would if I called them. I said, I happen to have the chief's phone number in my phone right now. You want me to call him?
Unbelievable. People are just so rude.
And if he was outside, that car was there when I went out, I would have called him.
I don't blame you. People are just rude.
He goes, oh, they won't come for that.
Yeah, they will. They will. Really, that's it.
And I went up to another guy one time, same type of guy, by the way. Went up to the car, tinted glass, big SUV, tapped on the window, he rolls the window down. I go, buddy, excuse me, you got a handicap? He goes, no, why? I go, because you're parked in a handicap. It's pouring rain. He goes, well, nobody's here. I go, they can't be there because you're there.
Yeah, that's a good point.
He goes, but I'm not parking, I'm only standing.
People like that, you know, it's funny because when I was a senator, we put one of the few bills in throughout the country. It was called the Lemon Law for people with assisted devices. And what it meant was, if you obviously had any type of disability at all, and you purchased a piece of equipment, assistive technology equipment, whether it was a wheelchair, a device to help you breathe, and it didn't work, you had to get a new one. And that law passed. That was one of that was one of my first laws that I put in the past. I've been a nurse now.
Right, exactly. A lot of people don't know that about you.
Yeah, I've been a nurse, and you know, that's one. Of course, as you know, I was a fireman. But I have to tell you, my first job, people don't realize it.
A nurse and a fireman. What else?
Well, before that, I'll tell you a funny story. It's a true story. I was 17 years old. I was still in high school. It was in my senior year. It was December of '71. And I had a cousin who was a salesman who sold advertising for a radio station in West Warwick. It was called WSVP. Then it went to WKRI.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yep.
So he said to me, he said, listen, he said, they need someone to fill in. He said, why don't you fill in? He said, they'll pay, at the time it was like $5 an hour, which was a lot of money back then. And, you know, just fill it because they were having a Christmas party and they wanted the staff to be there. So I said, all right, I'll give it a shot. So I met with the program director, and he said to me, he said, He said, okay, so you can start. He said, you'll start at 7. He said, if you don't have anything to say, don't say it, just spin the records. We had records back then, 45, an album, right? The big cart machines for the commercials. Anyway, so quickly, not to belabor the issue on my story here, that was my first decent job. I ended up working, but before I started, the operations manager said, we can't use his name, it's too ethnic.
Oh, no kidding.
So listen, so I said ethnic. So
Wow.
they gave me the name Mark Elliott. That was the name I used.
You were Mark Elliott?
Yes.
I remember that.
And by the way, the operations manager, his last name was Hooker. Get it? So I'm like,
Wow.
you don't like my name, but anyway, that's the name I
Yeah,
used.
exactly. Hooker could be okay.
Yeah, I guess. So, I mean, it's tongue in cheek. So anyway, I did that show. They were listening, obviously, going to wherever they were going for their Christmas party. I think they were going to Mr. V's, which used to be on Tyoke Avenue, for their Christmas party. Anyway, so he told me, he said, come and see me Monday. This was a Saturday night. Come and see me Monday. He said, I said, well, I got school. I know you got school. He said, after school, come and see me Monday. And I ended up doing weekends. And then when I graduated, so that was 71, December of 71. 72, I graduated in June of 72 from Johnston High School. I started working full-time as a disc jockey.
And using that name,
Yeah,
right? Mark Elliott.
Mark Elliott, yeah.
Because I remember that.
Yeah, I got air checks too that I listened to that I have. So I worked at WSVP. Then I worked at WGNG.
Oh, yeah.
Remember GNG in
Yeah.
Pawtucket? Then I worked for a little while, worked part-time at Pro FM when they went from beautiful music to rock.
We were talking about that earlier, me and Steve, because I did some work for PRO,
Right.
AM and FM.
Yeah, I did that. And then I worked at WNLC in New London, Connecticut.
Yeah.
And then I came back, got on the fire department a couple of years later, a few years later, got on the
In
fire
Johnston.
in Johnston. And then one night I met Big Ange. Remember Big Ange?
Of course.
So there was a weenie truck that used to park at a gas station at night in Johnston on Fridays, Saturdays, and
Yeah.
Sundays. So we came back from a fire, and I had soot all over. We stunk. So I was on the rescue.
Right.
So he goes, oh, how are you? Because we started talking. So he said, you know who I am? He originally came from Johnston. His name was Jack Manzi.
Oh, I didn't know
And his
that.
father was the Johnston city solicitor, like back in the 60s.
Sure.
So anyway, we started talking. He says, I'm the program director for WKRI, and I'm looking for a midday guy. So he said, come and see me.
Cut it out.
Yeah, I swear to God. I got tapes and everything. So anyway, I ended up working middays for about 7-8 months in about 80, it was 85, 86. I also worked at it was called Wink 1063, WNCK in Woonsocket. It was in a house, believe it or not, it was in a residential area.
Yeah.
I worked there for a while. So I had fun with it. I got my old air checks that I listened to.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, that's where I started. Became a fireman. Then went to nursing school. Became a nurse. Worked at St. Joseph's Hospital in Providence, in the emergency room. Worked.
St. Joseph's Hospital.
Yeah.
I love that place.
Yeah, that was nice.
That saved my son,
Yeah, that
by
was-
the way.
that
My
was-
son was in a bad car accident. He
Really?
spent 35 days in that hospital, 10 of them in a coma.
Yeah, wow. It was a
Yeah.
good hospital. Worked there. Then I worked, different places. Worked at the old Cranston General. Then I went back to school, got my master's degree, and I started teaching. I've been teaching at CCRI since
Right.
1985.
You still teaching
I
there?
still teach. Believe it or not, I still teach.
Wow.
I work as an assistant professor. In fact, I'm the program director for all the EMT programs now there. So I do that, and I teach now at Central High School. So believe it or not, and it's great. I have 12 students, 6 male, 6 female. They want to become firefighters. And they're actually working with the Providence Fire Department. They're taking Firefighter 1 and Firefighter 2. And if they pass my course, pass Firefighter 1, Firefighter 2, they've got a very good chance on becoming a Providence firefighter.
Right. Well, they got an upper leg, upper hand.
They
I
do,
guess.
and so it's through the college. It's an 8-credit course that I teach. It's through CCRI.
So they get the credits,
They get
college
they
credits for
get
that?
if they pass, they get 8 credits from CCRI. So I'm doing that now, and I love it. I've taught a lot of years, Bob, and I always taught college students that came in, and they always thought, some of the college they think they're smarter than me. And I tell them, wait a minute. They try to like.
Talking to the wrong guy.
I've been doing this. So just so you know, I got on the fire department January 15th, 1975. 50 years I've been doing this.
Wow.
I'm 70 years old now.
Right.
So I was 20 when I got on the fire department. So I've been involved in the fire service and EMT. A culmination of 50 years.
50 years.
50 years, yeah.
That's
So,
unbelievable.
yeah, that's why. So now I retired as mayor. I swore my son in, as you know, my son's the mayor
Exactly,
of Johnston.
yeah.
I swore him in on a Monday. By Friday.
there.
Yes, you were there. You came. Yes, you were gracious enough to come. He had 800-900 people there. You had a
That
good
was
crowd.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
That was really unbelievable.
Every politician
I sent
was
you
there.
all the
Yes, you
videos.
did. Yes, you did. All the politicians were there. It was nice. And then so that was on a Monday. By Friday, I was like Junior Soprano looking in the paper to go to Wakes. I was so bored. I had not. So then
Really?
CCRI. So then I was teaching at Roger Williams University, the EMT program, 2 nights a week. Then I got a call from the people at CCRI and they said, "Would you like to come back?" And I said, "Yeah." So I don't want to work full time. I get a lot of offers to work as a nurse because
Right.
I do IVs. I teach IV therapy. I do stuff like that. But I don't want to work full time. I'm at that
I
point.
get that. Yeah, I get
I
that.
got 2 grandchildren now, and my wife's put up with a lot with me being out all the time.
Right.
Working all the time. She had to play Mr. Mom and
Working
Mom.
or going to school.
Going to school, yeah, both, a little bit of
'Cause
both.
you did it
Yeah.
both.
And I always worked 2 jobs. I worked as a firefighter and as a nurse.
Well, we're the same type of person. That We
exactly.
always got to have something going.
Something to do.
Always got to be doing
That's
something.
why you had to come back to this. You got to keep going.
Exactly.
gotta keep
And
going.
people don't even realize I don't even get paid for this.
No, I know. No, I know that. I know that.
32 years I've been doing this, and I miss less time than most people would ever on any job
On any
would
job,
miss
yeah.
getting paid for it.
Well, you do it for the public, so this way you get the information, which
Exactly.
is important because nowadays, there's no public access anymore like there used to be. At least you're out there. People are familiar with your show. They know your show. They know you, which is good. So that's good that you continue to do that. So that's what I've been doing. I've been teaching. My son, I think he's doing a really good job. He really
Yep.
is. Not because he's my son, but he is my son. He's got a different style than me.
I'll bet he does.
Oh, very different. I was.
Now, how so different? Like,
So if someone upset me enough, I'd like jump over the desk and want to choke them.
I was going to say,
know, if you-
a little less cost than you.
Yeah. So I mean, if you came after my
Family?
my Johnston,
Oh, your
my
city?
people, right?
Right.
I'd like, "Arr." But he's different. He's an attorney. He's calmer. But
Right.
if you push him against the wall, he'll come out biting like a pit bull.
Right.
So he's done a real good job. He's got a lot of. I hear a lot of people, a lot of compliments. He's got a different style. And the only thing is, he's having a tough time with the state because.
Why?
For some reason.
You wouldn't think.
No.
I mean, you were very big with the
McKee,
With McKee.
you think? You think?
Yeah.
I mean, Lieutenant Governor, Governor, and McKee's upset at Johnston because he made the statement allegedly from some influential politicians. I guess he was upset because even though he won for the governor seat, he got beat. I believe he got beat by Ashley Kalis, the Republican.
Right.
But that's the people's. That's their
Johnston's
right.
a Republican town.
They're very conservative. They're very conservative. Yes, they are.
Just like part of North Providence is quite conservative.
Correct.
Herb G. Simone comes to
Yeah,
mind.
yeah. So I guess, my son tries to get things done. And of course, whether it's through DOT or something, they're giving them the code.
Wait a minute, that surprises me.
Well, it doesn't. Nothing surprises me anymore.
You were always there.
Oh, you think so? I know so. And I did it I don't want anything. I did it because Dan McKee was my friend.
Right.
Was
I
my
thought
friend.
all you guys were together.
We started the
Northern Alliance.
Well, we
there.
did. We started the
Mayor
the Mayor's
Alliance.
group. Yeah, we started the Mayor's group.
You,
There was me, Joe Allman.
Right.
Danny
Charlie.
McKee. Charlie came in later because he got elected after us.
Right.
And that was it. There was 4 of us started off at first.
Right.
And like I said, I was very close to him. I helped. I made sure that he came to all of our functions. I used to have a luncheon. Every month I'd have a luncheon. It was free and open to businessmen and women, politicians.
Right.
They all came. We'd have about 100, 120 people come. And we talked.
You always had good food, too.
Italian food.
You
right?
always
Italian food.
had good food.
And it was free, and and I made sure he came to meet people. But it is what it is. 2 years
I'm
is gonna
surprised.
2 years is gonna come quick. So
Yeah.
I'll come out of retirement, and then I got a feeling that between the bridge and ILO and this other debacle with the Deloitte. I mean, you're in there. You get blamed for it. Like I used to
Oh,
get
no,
blamed for
even if
stuff.
you didn't do it, you're going to get blamed for it.
Right,
And,
so-
and he can't, the bridge was there. That happened.
And I get it, but he's in charge. So, but my point is, I feel bad for the people of Johnston, but like my son said, he was trying to get some bridge rebuilt, and of course, Alviti said
Yeah, I
no.
saw it on TV. There was a small bridge, right?
Yeah,
There's
very small.
it's
And
like from here to the curtain.
originally it was $2 million. Now Alviti said it's $20 million. Channel 10 did an investigative story. There's no records of $20 million. So they're going to knock the bridge down. So like my son said, I told my son what I would do is I'd put up a sign on the Johnstons, because I bought a sign maker, because we make the street signs,
Right.
Lakeshore Drive, Smith Street. And I said, get a sign, just put up there that if you want the bridge back up, call Dan McKee. That's what I would do. That's what I would do.
You would do that,
I'd
yes.
put up a sign on the town street
I'm
saying if you want the
surprised to hear that. My
yeah.
God.
Yeah, so and it's obvious because they won't do anything. I'll tell you real quickly a story. There was a flooding area at Belfield Drive.
That always floods.
Right. I had it years ago. I just opened up 295. I didn't really care.
I remember that. yeah.
I didn't get permission.
Right.
My-
You decide a little like.
right out 295.
Right,
Right.
yeah.
Wasn't supposed to do it, but I did it.
Exactly.
So anyway, to make a long story short,
But that's you.
that's how I am. When
Yeah.
it comes to my residents, I took care of them.
Right,
And I
right.
would take a bullet
You
for
get
them.
it done.
Right. And my son's the same way, but being a lawyer, he tried to call the governor, to no avail. He ended up talking to Helena Folks, and he told her what happened, and then she ended up she was talking to Gina Raimondo, Commerce Secretary. She
Right.
called my son. She put him in touch with Buttigieg, and he got it open. He was
I
able-
remember that, yeah.
He was able to get it open. So, as I said, the people of Johnston, I feel bad for them, but they have a right to vote for who they want. You know what I'm trying to say? So I guess McKee's mad at Johnston, and that's fine. They won't do brush, they won't do roads, like state roads. Some of the state roads are in tough shape in Johnston. But the people of Johnston will have a say election day.
Well, that's surprising to hear that.
2026,
My God.
they'll have a say.
Yeah.
They'll have a say in the primary if he survives and if he runs, and they'll have a say in the general election because people know it. People know that the governor is shunning Johnston. He kind of shuns away from him because he's mad at Johnston. But that's the outcome.
But that doesn't make sense.
But listen, that's the democratic process.
Right.
Where you vote for who you want.
Right.
You vote for who you want. So
Right.
people are upset that Trump got in, but that's the process. People are upset when Biden got in 4 years ago. That's the process. No, it's the process. So I guess McKee doesn't understand the process, but I know that because my son, he doesn't tell me much because he does his own thing. But I hear him talking, and I've spoken to some of his staff, and I guess the state doesn't want to do anything for the town of Johnston, but that's okay. And Johnston.
Now, he's heard that from other people?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. The state's lucky I'm not the mayor, because I'm like a kamikaze. I go right after.
Oh,
him.
you would go in the State House. You'd go in his office.
Absolutely. I'd be out front of his house in Cumberland protesting. I'm telling you, I would. I feel bad for the people of Johnston. You're the governor for everybody, whether you're a Democrat or Republican. Listen, I got along very good with Governor Chafee, Lee
Right.
Chafee. A lot of people didn't. I got along good. I got close to him. Because he was a mayor. He knew what we went through.
Right.
Quite frankly, I was also close with Governor Almond. Governor Almond was he was a Republican. He was a good governor, and of course I was also friendly with Governor Carcieri. So I was friends with all the governors.
Right.
And I was friends with Gina Raimondo, obviously, because I was the mayor. I had to be, and like I said, their politics may be different than mine. Governor Chafee, I thought he was a good governor.
I thought he was, too.
He had his own quirky ways, but he was a good
Yeah,
governor, and I
yeah.
got along good with him, and he took care of Johnston, So we'll see what happens, like I said. But other than that, I got two beautiful grandchildren. I got a grandson, Joseph Michael III. I told my son if he didn't name him after me, I'd write him out of the will.
Oh, did you say?
So, and I got a 7-month-old baby granddaughter, Madison Rose. So
cute.
My wife and I are having a good time. And like I said, I stay active teaching. I still got my finger on the pulse when it comes to politics.
Yep. Well, that never goes away.
No, listen,
never goes
I was
away.
12 years as a senator and 16 years as a mayor. That's 28 years of public service.
Yeah.
Plus 21 years as a firefighter. And I've been a nurse for 40 years. It's like I had 9 lives.
That's crazy,
Like,
huh?
it was, being a nurse was a lot. I really enjoyed it. And when I was on the fire department, as I said, I spent 21 years. I was 18 years on rescue, and I was the rescue coordinator. I loved the rescue.
And most of them don't like it, right?
Because
They want off.
They want off because you're up all the time. I used to love it.
Right,
I
because
mean,
you got to work.
You got to work.
Rescue's got to work.
You got to work. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I was, I had situations where I had my own family. My brother, I found him dead from a drug and alcohol overdose. I saved him.
Really?
Yeah. Did CPR on him, saved him, intubated him. We had Narcan back then. It wasn't in the spray. We dumped it down the tube. I intubated and dumped it down the tube. So, but
Dump it down his throat?
yeah, we intubated him, put an endotracheal tube down
Really?
into
Yeah,
his
yeah.
lungs, and you could dump. We had an acronym called NAVEL, N-A-V-E-L, which means down the tube you could dump Narcan, atropine, Valium, epinephrine, and lidocaine.
Together?
No, whatever drug you had to give.
Oh, go
but
ahead.
those are the
Say,
drugs.
holy cow.
No, that's
That would be a
drug,
little much.
That's a drug cocktail.
Yeah.
But we had an acronym that we used. If we couldn't get an IV, especially if someone had died and they didn't have any blood pressure for a while, you couldn't get an IV.
Right.
We would end up intubating them and do endotracheal intubation. So I enjoy training. I trained. I was in charge of the rescues. I trained all the firefighters, and to this day, I've been teaching since 1985. I run into people. Retired firefighters. Hey, I had you in 1981.
Right.
What do you do? I'm retired. Oh, gee, you make me feel good. I'm that old. But hey, listen. God's been good to me. He gives me my health. I get up every morning at 2:30, believe it or not, because I never had good sleep.
I don't sleep for nothing.
No, I don't either. Being on the fire department on rescue, then I worked as a nurse 11 to 7 overnight.
Right.
So my sleeping habits are a little shy, but
I'm the other way around. Seriously, my bedtime is between 2 and 3 in the morning.
Really?
And I get up at between 6 and 7.
Wow. Okay.
That's all I get is 3 hours. 4
Yeah,
hours.
so me too.
That's all.
Like I said, I get up at 2:30. I go to the gym. Of course, you never know it, but
I send somebody to the gym for me. I don't go.
No, and I go. So I go to the gym 3-4 days a week, and the other times at 2:30, 3 o'clock, I walk for about an hour and a half.
Yeah, I wish I could. I wish I could.
Well, your
walk.
knees are tough. It clears my head. But like I said, God's been good to me. I'm very happy. I miss being the mayor because I miss the people.
Bet you do.
I miss the people, and
Yep.
I miss the challenge of going after people. And I guess
And look at what you've done. Look what you've done in Johnston. Look what you got. You got the
Amazon.
Amazon up there.
Citizens Bank.
Citizens.
Yeah. So what happened was when I took over as mayor, my administrative assistant and I walked in. God rest her soul. She died a couple of years ago, pancreatic cancer. She was an angel. She was a sweetheart.
What was her name?
Janet Whiteley.
Yes.
She was
Oh
great.
yeah, of course.
Janet was a sweetheart.
Yeah.
God rest her soul. So the day we walked in, I got sworn in. It was January 7th, 2007, and we walked in, and there was no furniture in my office. So I said, "What the heck's going on?"
What happened to the furniture?
Well, the previous guy took the furniture. Previous mayor.
Are
took the
you
furniture.
kidding?
Yeah. So it actually, Channel 12 came up and interviewed my first day. They're like, "Where's the furniture?" 10, and it made CNN News. I guess it was fed. I was told it made CNN News because my friend in Florida saw it, and he sent me a nasty note ha ha no.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
I had no furniture. I had a $10 million deficit, so we had to make some tough decisions. So we of course I was a new guy. They wanted a new library, I said nobody gets nothing new, anything, nothing. Get out. But quite frankly, we ended up building a brand new library. I had President Obama's Secretary of Libraries and Museums come to the opening. Believe it or not. Yeah. We built a new library. We built a new recreation center. I built a new high school football field. And we built a lot of infrastructure stuff. And when I left on January 7th, a couple of years ago, I left the coffers with a $45 million surplus.
What a swing that is.
So the problem was we had zoning and planning boards that really were not friendly, business friendly.
Right.
And there is a God because the terms were expiring, and I got
rid of them.
and I put on business-minded people on my planning board. There's 7 members. I put on 4 women, business women, and we ended up, over almost about $2 billion in new business. We got Amazon, obviously. We got a for-profit hospital that came in on Route 6. We got, of course, Market Basket came in, A. Dewey Pile Trucking Company, FedEx. We had 4 or 5 new CVSs come into the town, Walgreens. We had Citizens Bank, their headquarters. They came into. They've been a good neighbor.
That was
Yeah.
Jews.
So we've been lucky, and I think cities.
Well, that's not luck.
Well, I would have a saying: when you submit, we permit, because people go to.
Yeah, there you go.
No, it's true.
There you go.
Well, people go to these cities.
Do it in Providence.
Right. People don't want. They want to invest money. They don't want to be held up with.
Right.
I hate bureaucracy. I really do.
Restrictions and
I
permits
can't stand it. And by the way, if you came to Johnston, you want to put up a business, small or large, you follow the procedure. We gave you a list. You're going to do this,
Right,
this,
right,
and this.
right.
If you did that, we're not going to.
You're done. You're ready to go.
And I would tell my people, if it sits on your desk for more than 7 days, you're fired.
There you
I
go.
make them stamp it when it comes in. And they would look at me, I said, you're fired. Because people want to invest money. And by the way, when you've got more businesses coming in, that's less burden on the taxpayers, the
Right.
homeowners.
Right.
People don't realize it. And
Right.
this is a tough state to do business in.
Very, well,
Really.
it's been ranked number 50 for a long time.
It is. And you know, some of the environmental regulations, like I was lucky, I will tell you this, I think that Terry Gray, the DEM director, is one of the best directors we had. I think I got to give McKee credit for making him the director, because when we had major companies come in like Citizens Bank and we had Amazon and the hospital, you know, I talked to Terry Gray. He took a personal, made sure that they followed the regulations,
Right.
but there was no sitting on someone's desk.
Right.
You know, I mean, it was, and I got to
No
tell you.
stalls.
No stalls. And I will tell you, Gina Raimondo was the governor that helped us with Amazon. That's, if you know what I'm telling you.
Yep, yep.
It was her, and not anybody, not any other governor. And I will tell you this: we're on a conference call. At first, I was talking to a guy. He was pretty high, a couple of notches below Bezos at the time. And I told him, I said, when you submit, we permit back and forth. We want you here. We did a good tax stabilization for the town. By the way, they were getting $60,000 a year on the land. The town's getting $7.5 million a year for 20 years.
Nice.
So we did that. And I will tell you that I got a call after from Gina Raimondo on her personal cell phone. She called me on my personal cell phone and said, Mayor, whatever I got to do, we got to get this done. So she helped, and she was the only governor. No other governor, current or past, but Gina Raimondo helped. And I'm not the president of her fan club. I'm being honest with you.
Right.
Gina Raimondo, she wanted to see this come to fruition with the jobs and stuff. And they're talking 1,000 to 1,200 jobs. This tax stabilization for the town of Johnston is great. My son's building new schools, so it's the infrastructure program. So it's good. And he has trouble with the school department, like anything else. They spend money like they hate it.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's Charlie Lombardi saying,
They
right?
can't hold on to it. They can't hold on to it.
Listen. They spend money like they hate it. Number one. Number two, when I left, I would give them, like they needed boilers for the high school, we put them in. If I gave them the $1 million for the boiler, I got to give them the $1 million every year thereafter. That's called maintenance of effort. That's a state law.
Right.
I would just write out a check from the town side. So whatever they wanted, I gave them. New athletic complex,
Right.
I gave them
But
boilers.
you only get it once.
You only get it once. And when I got out, this one woman, Susan Manzalola, was at a school committee meeting on the school bank, attacking me that I didn't give them enough money and all this other stuff. Now, come on. And I had a
Well,
list
the more money you give them, the more they want.
Right.
It's just a continual process after that.
Correct.
After that
Correct.
point.
What happened is, the school departments in the state, the school committees in the state, should be their own taxing agency. They should get elected, run for office, and be their own taxing
Right.
agency. And they would see now what it's like.
Take their own money in and
Yes,
spend their own money.
Exactly.
Handle their own budget.
And they'll be responsible to the taxpayers.
Oh, I'm done with you, it looks like.
Okay. Well, it's been great. I'm sorry I used up all the oxygen in the room, but I hadn't seen you in a while. And
It's great to
it
see
was
you,
an honor
man.
to be here. It was an honor to be here. Really, it really is. It was always good seeing you. You're a dear friend. We've always been friends.
Yep.
And you've always been there for me. I have to say it.
Next time I want you to come on with your son.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm
Absolutely.
going to pitch us against each other.
That's right. Different style than me.
We'll have some fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell him. That'll be great. He'd like
Tell
that.
him that would be good. That would be
Absolutely.
good.
Great.
Joe, nice seeing you
Always
again.
a pleasure. Thank you so
Former
much.
mayor of Johnston for how many years, Joe Polisena?
16 years. 16.
16.
And 12 years as a state senator.
Wow.
Yeah.
And 45 years as a nurse.
Going 41 years, going on 41
41
years.
years.
Yeah. And like I said, I've been involved in the fire service and EMS for
Wow.
about 50 years.
Wow.
January 15th, 1975.
All right. Well, thank you for stopping by. Hang in there a second. We'll be right back on An Hour with Bob. Well, we're back on An Hour with Bob. You might know this guy, Paul Zangari. I've heard that name before around.
too.
Actually, I'm joking because I know the name very well. I listened to his radio show, him and his brother,
Yeah,
right,
John,
for
yeah.
years. And
1988 we started.
are you kidding me?
Nope. No.
Oh, by the way, Paul Zangari here. 1988?
Yeah. Ron St. Pierre called me up. They were looking to do experts on WPRO. That was the beginnings of talk on the radio station there. And he was asking people around, trying to find people who knew stuff. At the time, I was working for Fram. You remember the auto parts manufacturer based here in East Providence?
Right.
Worldwide. I was
Exactly.
I was in a grease
One of my
pit.
favorite commercials of all time was the Fram commercial. I talk about
Pay
it all
me
the
now
time.
or pay me later.
Pay me now or pay me later.
Frank McGonigal.
Right?
Yep.
Change your oil.
Yep.
Buy the new filter. Buy a filter and change your oil.
Spend a little now or a lot later.
A lot later.
Yep.
Yes.
I was in a grease pit in Roskilde, Denmark, with my buddy Jan, who was
Whoa,
lived
what?
there.
What?
Yeah.
In Denmark.
I spent 101 days as a bum in Europe, 2 years out of college. But at any rate, so I'm in the grease pit there, and there are Fram filters, East Providence, Rhode Island, right on the box.
No kidding.
Yep. So yeah, it is definitely
That was big. I had
worldwide.
one
from
of
here.
my cousins worked there at Fram back in the day. My aunt worked there at Fram.
Yep. So I'm working for Fram, doing public relations and technical writing for them. And Fram was promoting Car Care Month and promoting it in conjunction with the Lung Association. So I was doing media with Molly Clark from the Lung Association. Ron happens to ask Molly, do you know anyone who knows about cars and can talk? I know just the guy.
Yeah,
And that's
there you
how
go.
It happened.
Wow.
Yeah. And so now, all these years later, it started out as Paul Zangari and Car Care. I was on with another person from the station. Usually it was Bruce Newberry.
Yeah,
You
I remember Bruce.
Yep. And we were getting to the point where the automotive technology was changing big time. So I had worked on
That's when
cars.
I got out of it, by the way.
Yeah,
I used to work on cars.
I
all through-
probably would have. Now I worked on when it was in the 70s. I was working on old cars.
Right.
So
Yeah, you like the older cars.
oh yeah, but I wasn't. I guess I wasn't really afraid of the newer cars because although there's different ways that they're controlled, they have to do the same things. You know, you have to match the temperature of the engine, what its requirements in terms of fuel and air and load and all of that. They just
Right.
have more sophisticated ways of sensing and then actuating. But getting ahead of myself over there, we were starting to encounter calls about servicing the newer tech engines. And
Right.
it was stuff that my brother was up to date on because he was an automotive technology teacher for a while. Then he went to work for Toyota to teach their technicians.
No kidding.
So he was getting technician school. He was getting
he was
factory
ahead of it.
schooling. Yeah, he was getting factory schooling on it.
Wow.
The way things operated right out of the showroom. So we'd call him in on the show, and after a while, said, "This is ridiculous. Let's just have the two of us on."
Right, yeah.
And that's how that came about.
Wow.
Yeah. And we're still doing it. Saturday mornings, 8 o'clock, we're live on WPRV, and then at 8:30 p.m., we're on WPRO.
Yep. And sometimes I hear it in the morning, sometimes I hear it at night.
Yeah. It just, it's pretty cool. I can't believe it's been going on all this time.
And then, you know what I also like is when you compare cars, you talk about different cars.
We try out a new car. Most weeks it's a new car.
Right.
Been
Now, how
doing-
do you manage that? How does that come about?
Well, it's funny how it started because when I was on WEAN, which was, I was there from 77 through
Journal.
85. Yeah, that was when the Journal owned it and it was an all-news station.
Right.
And what started me on doing automotive stuff on the radio was when Representative Henry Boninger from Westerly asked a question about gasoline and why does it cost more money when they took an ingredient out, lead.
Right.
And, I was always reading tech stuff.
And they changed it with corn.
Yeah, well, that came later, but in the time that he had asked the question, the lead was out and the cost went up, and the cost went up because lead was a cheap way to build more octane into the gas. And the higher the octane fuel, the more compression an engine can
Right,
run at,
and
the
the
more
faster
power
it
can
goes.
put
That's
out.
right, absolutely.
So they had to come up with other chemical formulas to make up for the lack of the lead. So I described that one weekend on the air, and that started getting around, which was weekly automotive stuff on
Right,
Ween.
yeah.
And as a result, if a car company had something going on my day off in New England, I'd go to it. And I got a call one time from Chuck Olbricht. He was the New York PR office operator for Ford, and said, "Hey, have you ever test driven any cars?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He says, "Well, we and the other factories have them available for actual media to try out.
Wow.
And, hear or see what, hear what you want to say or see what you want to write." And it started, I got an 81 Mercury Lynx, and it's been going on ever since.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So now, do you get them? You get them from different companies, though. You're not only Ford.
Actually, I get them from everyone. Ford was the first, and back then there wasn't any formal way of distributing them. So I got together usually with John White of the Globe and George Souza of the Herald, and we'd meet and swap among ourselves. So there were at least 3 cars in the rotation. So like every week or so,
Right.
we'd meet somewhere. Maybe it would be Park Square in Boston. Sometimes it'd be closer to here, and swap the cars. And they would be mainly the Detroit manufacturers and some other imports thrown in every now and then.
Right.
As time went on, we formed a group, New England Motor Press Association, and it's pretty big now.
Oh, that's how you get them all.
And work together with, if you ever heard Car Talk on NPR and you hear Bugsy Lawler?
Yeah.
Well, Bugsy set up a business to distribute the cars. And so he works with the different manufacturers, and it makes it so that we each get a fair shot in
Right.
each car.
So all the radio, all the TV, and all the newsprint get
Newspapers,
cars.
and now, of course, we have internet people as well.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's gotten a little bit more formal.
I'll bet.
Unlike the time Ford gave me an '83 T-Bird to test drive, and I had it, and they were going to call me when they wanted it back, and after I'd had it so long,
You kept
that
it?
I said, I got to change the oil in this thing.
No kidding.
I called them up and I said, I've had this thing so, oh, we forgot.
We forgot you had it?
Yes.
Are you kidding me?
No. Which was fine.
How long did you have
the
it?
car. I probably had it 4 weeks. You know, 1 week is enough to get a sample.
Sure. You should know by then.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's funny. I mean, being into cars and being into old cars, I get something new each week. In some ways, it's ironic, but
When you talk about cars and talk about gasoline
Yeah.
in particular, when I was a kid, I used to have a lot of fast cars in,
Yep.
in the 80s and the 70s and the 80s.
Yep.
GTOs, Trans Ams, did over several 55 Chevrolets with
Yep.
327s
Yeah,
in
the
them.
Tri-Chevys, yep.
409, I put a 409 in a 58 Nomad wagon, and it was a 2-speed power glide
Oh, yeah,
transmission.
yep.
I left the shifter on there, and I put a 4-speed Muncie
Muncie,
transmission with a Hearst Competition Plus shifter in it. And I go down the River Road back in the day. It was the place there in Providence.
Yep.
I go down there and I pull up to this kid. This one kid had a 56 Chevrolet. We were talking about the
yep,
56.
like I had one for.
Had a 56 Chevrolet with a 327 in and a all fiberglass front end for weight, right? And he was the king of the crowd there. You know, he
Yep.
had the fastest car there.
Yep.
But he wasn't the best driver. So I pull up to him with this big butt 58 Chevrolet,
Yep.
Nomad wagon, totally stock from the outside, black, totally black car, bench front seat, and a Nomad, if you remember, had the stripes on the tailgate.
Well, I remember the 55, 6, and 7 Nomads, but
Yeah,
the 50,
they went to 58. Was the last year they made it.
All right.
And it was a 4-door. Many of the Nomads were only 2 doors.
They did change the nature of the Nomad as time went on. I know
Right.
that.
The 55, 56 were 2 doors.
In fact, my cousin had a Chevelle Nomad. It was much later.
Really?
Yeah. Yep.
Well, anyway, I'm down there. I just put a 409 with dual quads, high-rise manifold on the car, right? A 3/4 race cam. I pulled down in front of these kids, these guys, and this guy was always, he was a jerk anyway with everybody because he had the best
'Cause
car.
I'm
He
it.
just had a lot of
I'm
money.
it. Yep.
He had a lot of
Right.
money. And here, maybe a local kid from
Paycheck
McGill
performance.
Street.
Yep.
I pull up to him, a car I built though, not that I
Yep.
had paid somebody to build. I pull up to him. Now, as you know, a 327 got better revs, taken off. He's got more out of the hole.
Down the
He should
bottom.
beat me.
Yeah,
He
down
should
the
beat me
yeah.
out of the hole because he's got the revs versus I get the power on the top end. He's got the power on the bottom end, right? Plus, his car's lighter than mine, especially with the fiberglass, nose.
Yep.
But I pull up anyway, and I give it a little. I make off. I put it in neutral, and I start revving it up, right? And then I make off putting it in drive. I really got it in first gear, and I got
Yeah.
an 11-inch clutch, by the way.
Oy.
Very hard clutch. I got the clutch in, and I rev it up like I got it in neutral.
Yep.
I throw it in drive, and I nail it, but I feather the clutch, so I ride the clutch so it doesn't peel out. It
Yeah.
it slips.
You're not wasting revs. Yeah.
Well, no. I made it. I want to make it look like a
You're
dog.
still. Oh, you're still.
I want to make
still
it look
playing
like
them
a,
along.
Oh yeah,
All right.
absolutely. So
All
I
right.
nail it, and I only peel out a very little bit. So he starts going, "Oh, what a dog, what a dog!" So I put it in reverse quickly, and I make off. I put it in reverse, and I back up to him. What'd you say? And he goes, "Oh, that's a rat. It's this or that." I go, "Really? No, that's a rat. It's 56 Chevrolet. A 56 Chevrolet." I said,
Actually, a 409.
"I can beat that." He goes,
396 was the rat, but that's different.
"Yeah, different motor."
Yeah.
So we kind of argued a little bit, and we ended up making a bet. Back in the day, it was a lot of money. It was $50. It was a lot of money.
Yeah.
We're talking about in the late 70s.
I could have gotten 3 transmissions for that. but
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah. So you know where we used to run the quarter mile? We'd get on over by on 146. We'd get on 146 over by Charles Street, over by Home Depot. Get on over there.
All right.
And you'd pull right on, and back in our day, they didn't have nearly as many
No, it
cars
was
as
pretty-
are on the
yeah,
road. There's probably
pretty empty,
1/3 as many cars on the road. So we pull up on the highway, and we'd take off from there, you know. But I never took the right lane, because there's always dirt in the right lane. So I pull over into the center lane, right? And he has to pull over in the right lane. And we had somebody out there, girl in the middle, giving him one of
The
these
flag,
things,
yep.
and we nailed. I even took him out of the hole, which was amazing. I almost hit him though. I almost hit him because I fishtailed.
Yeah.
I fishtailed, but I had partial traction too, and I nailed it. And I mean, I beat him so bad it was pathetic. And we pulled over, and first thing he wanted to do was look under the hood. I go, "No, that cost you more."
Yeah.
To look under the hood. Yeah.
You want to see, you got to pay.
But yeah. But I mean, I made a fool out of him because he's such a jerk. He just
for
thought
you.
he was the cast me out with everybody.
Yeah.
But on top of it, I built my own car. You know.
Yeah. Now, to me, that was part of the fun.
But I put a 389 GTO motor, 3
Yeah.
deuces, into
Yeah.
a 58 Chevrolet convertible.
Nice. Different, too. Different.
And I couldn't mount the motor mounts were totally different.
Yeah.
So I took the car to East Providence Welding. I dropped the motor in the cradle, and in the back
Yep.
in the day when they had
They had
chassis,
room, yeah,
when they had
yep.
real chassis, I dropped the motor in the cradle, and I brought it over, towed it over to East Providence Welding, and they took it out and they built the mounts for me and put it back together.
You know, when you mentioned 58 Chevy convertible, what I always think of is the NASCAR Tech Center in the Carolinas. What is it? The name of the town, but it's where NASCAR is headquartered. And I was writing an article for Motor Age about NASCAR Tech. And there is a 58 Chevy
I love those
convertible
cars.
that had been a NASCAR racer's back when the S in NASCAR, that stands for stock, really meant it.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Now they're a joke. Yeah.
It's just not the same if you remember the real stock cars.
Absolutely.
And that 58 Chevy was, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of stock cars, do you remember Lincoln? They had a racetrack.
Cumberland, actually, is right across.
Oh, I'm
the
sorry,
river.
you're right.
Yep,
Cumberland.
yep.
I said Cumberland.
There's actually there's a plaque memorializing it at the Stop and Shop.
Stop and Shop.
Yeah.
It's right behind there.
Yeah.
My father used to race there.
Really, I did see a race
Yep.
before, and I had thought that it had gotten washed out by Hurricane Carol, but that wouldn't have worked out right because that was 54, and I would have
54.
been too young.
Yep.
I was around, but I wasn't going to any races.
Right.
at
Yeah.
that age. So
Yeah.
it probably was 57 or so when it went out.
Yep.
And I would have had a chance.
There's
to
still
see
a section.
race.
I don't know if it's still there, but
When my brother had his 26 Chrysler Imperial, it was kind of a replica of a Chrysler Le Mans racer from the 1920s.
wow.
And there was a section of that track there. And
Yes.
We can't find the picture, but we took a picture of the car up on the banked
On the bank.
section
I
of
used
the-
to run
of the track.
motorcycles over there. I used to take a little motorcycle, 350, a Honda, a Scrambler, a 250 Yamaha. I used to mess around over there when I was a kid.
Yep. Yeah. You know, it's funny, you get pegged as the car guy after a while. I think I know how it started for me in the business. When I was working at what we then called Channel 36, and this would have been in the early 70s.
Right.
And the production manager, Irving Amatai, he loved his 66 Pontiac Catalina. But the engine blew. He had it towed to the station. He's wondering, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I said, Irving, don't worry about it. I'll
Was that a
find you an engine."
326?
It was a 389.
Oh, 389, of course, yeah.
Yep. And I found banged up, it was in an accident, a 64, was it Bonneville? So it was the 4-barrel.
I love the Bonnevilles.
But it was also a 389.
Yep.
So I got him the engine for $50, had it dropped at channel 36, and I swapped it in the parking lot.
I used to do that a lot. You
Yep.
know. I did a lot of
It was
motors.
behind the Adams Library at Rick, is where the station was at the time.
Wow.
It was really, really nutty to do it. But I just did it because I was trying to help him out, and I realized that kind of got the whole ball rolling. You know?
But they were pretty easy back then because you didn't have all this technical stuff all over it.
Yeah.
The top end, it had nothing on the top, and plus you had a lot of room inside
Well,
the
the
cabin.
other thing is there's other stuff that they're adding that doesn't have anything to do with the car running a lot of
Right.
times. You know, the sensors that spy on you, for crying out loud.
Sensors are ridiculous on cars.
well-
You know, one of the things I really hate that they put in cars, the clutching fan. Why did you got a fan, you only need the fan when the car's running.
Yeah.
And when they put all these relays on, and General Motors was the worst for them. I used to have Trans Ams, and
Well, you know what? You know,
they would overheat because of the relays.
there's
would
kind of
blow.
an interim period in there when the tech really, I think, was working against itself. By the late 90s, when OBD2, the second generation of onboard diagnostics, came in, and it's still
Yep.
the standard, it was in some, well, first of all, it's standardized so that the basics are the same among all the manufacturers. And as they went on, they didn't require as many wires. They have what they call CAN buses. It's controller area networks is what it stands for. And a lot of times the same wiring can be used by a whole bunch of different systems. It's just a different, for lack of a better term, tone that a receiver listens for and knows, oh, I'm supposed to do this now.
So they could
And
use
it's-
the same
Yeah,
harness?
yeah, it simplified things quite a bit.
Right.
And
When they get into all that stuff where you need the diagnostics and everything, that's when I got out of
well,
it.
see, they were kind of forced into it in a hurry to meet the emissions
Right,
requirements
right.
and the miles per gallon requirements,
Right.
and they didn't want the
In the
cars to be
70s,
dogs.
because
yeah.
of the, exactly, because of the oil embargo in the 70s.
Exactly, and they weren't ready for prime time yet,
Right.
and they kind of forced the issue. And the funny thing is, of course, also was a lot of the manufacturers were kicking and screaming, no, we're not going to do it because you're telling us to. And then Honda went and came out with the CVCC and said, hey, look, we can do it.
We can do it.
Yeah, and that kind of was a wake-up call for the rest of the industry.
Now, do you remember when they lowered the octane rating?
Oh, heck yeah.
I mean, I tell people that I used to buy octane, over 100 octane. We used to get gasoline over 100
yes,
octane.
you could.
I used to buy,
Before 73, anyway.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
I used to buy Amoco white gas. I used to
Yes.
call it white gas.
Right, the
because it was
unleaded Amoco.
Unleaded gas. It was the only unleaded gas back in the 70s.
Yep.
And I had a 56 Ford, my very first car that I ever owned. I bought when I was 14 years old. Forged my mother's signature on the registration, and I registered the car. I still remember the license plate, DM763. My mother never drove a car in her life, never owned a car.
Okay.
But I went and registered this car in her name. And I drove that car for 2 years before I was old enough to have a license. And I took the car, and right away, there was nothing wrong with the 292 that was in the car.
Nope.
But I took it out to put a 312 in it.
Oh, geez.
And-
It would fit, yeah.
And I decided that wasn't enough. I didn't want an automatic transmission.
Yeah, right.
I put a standard transmission in it, but then required me to put a hydraulic clutch in because it wasn't set up for a standard transmission.
Yeah, yep.
So I had a clutch, push plate, throw up, and the whole thing, but I had to use a hydraulic clutch.
Well, you could have so much fun being, I'll say, entrepreneurial with your designs of what you make fit. Although I went the easy way, I guess you could say, because I got my next door neighbor's '56 Chevy Bel Air, it was a
Right.
two-door sedan.
I love those
That was,
cars.
I would have that car today. I was 5 when he bought it. I intended to keep it. My father bought it from his estate and used it to pay me for some work I had done for him. He gave me the car. It was a stick 6, real solid
Straight
body.
6.
Yep. But I first rebuilt the engine in the car, but it was kind of worn, and it wasn't enough anyway. So I got a 283.
Yeah,
It's the-
great
the
motor.
small V8.
283,
Yep.
327 were my favorite motors.
Wonderful engines. Rebuilt it, put it in, and didn't realize there's something called the pilot bearing. or bushing.
Oh,
you know?
for the transmission,
Yeah,
the front of the
that supports
transmission.
the front of the
Oh,
transmission.
oh my God.
I didn't know about them yet.
Oh my God, the brass bushing. They
Yeah,
look like a
yeah,
donut, look like
yeah.
a small donut.
So the engine had come out of a car with an automatic, so it didn't have one.
Of course not.
Right. So I put everything together.
Wait a minute, you put it
everything
together
works.
without a pilot bushing?
bushing. So I became a member of the $15 a month transmission club.
Exactly, exactly. 'Cause
Luckily-
folks, what would happen to that motor, I mean, the transmission,
transmission.
the front end of that transmission
Would
would
do
start doing
this.
this,
Yeah.
and you'd end up blowing the
Yeah,
transmission.
you take out the front bearings in the transmission. So luckily, I was friends with a bunch of the guys that worked at Pierce Chevrolet, and Dickie Tatro, who was originally from Lincoln, was going to sell me a transmission that he had rebuilt out of a GTO. It was a Muncie 4-speed.
Right.
And I told him,
I
yeah,
love
says,
those. Those are the Borg Warners. The
yeah,
Borg
and,
Warner
well,
transmission.
I was telling him about it. I says, I got to get something stronger. I keep eating up these transmissions. He said, with a 283?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I go, yeah. I says, I got it out of this 58 Bel Air. He said, wait a minute. Did that have an automatic? Yeah. He said, you put a pilot bushing in it? What's
that?
Yeah. So he said, go up to the parts department, tell Joe to sell you pilot bushing, and then you can buy my transmission.
You saved a lot. You saved
Yeah.
a lot of transmissions with that
Yes,
bushing.
he
With
did.
that bushing, doing
Yep.
that. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Those were hard to set in. Put the transmission in when you get the clutch in. You're trying to set the.
It's tricky, especially when you're under the car like
Right,
this, doing
right.
this with the transmission.
Well,
but,
we used
yeah.
to take a bushing, the nose of a transmission.
Well, I had plenty of busted ones.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You used to take the nose in and you put it in the pilot bushing, and then you'd lock down.
Yes, you lock down the bolts on the
Clutch.
on the clutch. What do you call it?
Bell housing.
No, the
Clutch, pressure
the
plate.
Pressure plate. Yep. The easiest car to do that in is a Corvair. And the
I was
reason-
going to say that about your Corvair. I see your Corvair. Was it 64?
64. Yeah, I've had over 30 of them.
Have you ever had a Spider?
Yes, but it was one with a blown engine. I wound up parting it out.
Well, they have 8 carburetors? or
No, the Spider
4
was the turbo.
carburetors. No, wait a minute.
Olds and Chevy came out with turbocharged engines probably the same week in 1962. And Olds may have beaten Chevy by a few days, but the
Right.
Corvair was the one that sold. Because Oldsmobile buyers said, nah, I just want a bigger V8. You couldn't fit a V8 in a Corvair. You couldn't fit anything other than that flat
Plus,
six.
it was a rear end.
Yeah,
It was a
the
rear
only thing
wheel
you could
drive.
fit was the flat six. So if you wanted a faster Corvair, you had to have a turbocharger. So that was the
Right.
first popular turbocharged car. But at any rate, I did have the Spider. The Corsa had the 4 carburetors.
Right.
In 65 and 6. It went away for a while in 67. The
4
Corsa
single
never
barrels,
came back.
they were, 4
Exactly.
single
But you could get the 4 singles through the last year in 69. But the thing about the clutch is because the transaxle, you've got it's kind of silly to say this is the front, but here's the front of the car. Here's the engine.
Right.
Ahead of it, you've got the differential and you've got the transmission.
Right.
So there's the pilot shaft fits into the clutch at the front of the engine. It goes through the middle of the differential into the back of the transmission.
Wow.
It goes through a hollow shaft. So it slides out. So when you're putting the clutch together on a Corvair engine, you just pull the pilot shaft out of
Right.
the transaxle, stick it in the pilot bushing, assemble the clutch, take it back out, stick it in the transmission, and put it together.
Wow,
It's
that
easy.
sounds easy. Yeah.
And there's no question that it's going to fit because it's the one that's there,
Right,
built into
right.
the powertrain.
I never worked on a Corvair. Never worked on one. I've seen them.
I do them in my sleep.
I've been around them, but I
Yeah.
never worked on them. That made me Ralph Nader.
It's the car that made him famous, and I got to tell him once, "You're wrong."
Yeah, yeah.
He's owned a couple.
Really? Well, he considered that the most dangerous car on the road back in the day.
Yeah. He had one given to him,
Yep.
which he sold. Can you imagine a bill of sale on a '62 Corvair and it says Ralph Nader on the signature? But
What was
he
your
also
favorite car?
has one
Because
in
we
his
don't have a
museum.
lot of time, unfortunately. What's your favorite car? Favorite car you ever owned?
That I ever owned. I have a tough time making up my mind. I'm going to say my 3 favorites. That 56 Bel Air
Right.
that I would have kept if people didn't keep driving
Oh, by the
into
way,
it.
you know what I used to love about those 55, 56, 57? Do you know what I loved about them?
What's that?
Bring it to a gas station. And
Oh, the 56 is, yeah.
5 too?
Well, no, the 55 had a door on the side. The 57 had it nicely hidden in the
Right,
chrome.
and the
in the chrome.
right, right.
At the end of the fin.
Right.
But the 56 was the little handle at the
little-
top of the
yes, on
tail
the
light,
top
and you fold
tail
it
light.
down.
Yeah,
There was a
exactly.
billboard showing that. I remember seeing it when I was a kid.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? So, okay, the 56,
So my 56
what
Bel
else?
Air, my 65 Corvair Corsa,
Right.
that I stored badly and it rusted.
Okay.
It just got too bad. And my 31 Chrysler Roadster, which I
Wow.
still have, and
You still have that?
I still have it. I'm trying. There's a long, sad story about the engines disappeared, and that's.
What?
I don't usually send out work, but because of the fact that I had some part swaps and some other things going
Right.
with a fellow, he was teaching classes on car restoration. He was going to rebuild the engine, and he died,
Oh,
and we don't know where it is.
you know what I used to bring engines? Pawtucket Auto.
Oh yeah,
They used to
Oh.
do all the mill work
Frank
over
Brennan
there.
and Company.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a great spot. My favorite car, 56 Ford, all convertibles.
Uh-huh.
I loved convertibles.
I don't blame you.
56 Ford convertible, my first
Mm-hmm.
car. 58 Chevy convertible,
Nice. Yep.
409, former 348 too, and then a 389 of course, and then my 64 GTO convertible. I owned three Deuces and a 4-speed, just like this
Yep,
song.
yep.
3 Deuces, a 4-speed, 389, and,
Yep.
and 411 positive traction. And at the same time I owned that, I was at Roger Williams College. I owned a 64 GTO, which was the first and the best. All right, we got 1 minute. 64 blue with a white top, 66 white with a black top, and 68 yellow with a tan top. The other two
Unusual,
were
yeah.
400s,
Yep.
and the 64 was a
The
389.
389.
I had them all in my yard at the same time. I used to come out of my house and I just, with 3 sets of keys, which one am I going to take to school today? I did it all. Well, I finally got you on the show. We're going to have you back because we got to talk more cars.
It's been a lot of fun. Yeah, thanks for
People
having me.
finally got to know me about cars because I don't talk about cars. You made me talk about old times. When I love cars. I love back in the day.
We got to talk about the old days of TV too.
I had a
sometime,
lot
yeah.
of cars, a
Yep.
lot. I mean, hundreds of cars over the decades, especially the 60s, 70s,
Yep.
and 80s. I had a lot of those cars.
For me, it was the Corvair. I had over 30 of those.
Well, yeah, wow. I had 13, I figured this out, I had 13 55 Chevys. Only 2 56s, 4 57s, even experimental
The Fuelie?
fuel injection.
I had the fuel injection for a while in
purple
my
one.
56.
a purple one.
Okay. No, this was. I'll tell you the story off the air.
And that was 283. That was the first year to 283.
Yeah, and I had the
57 was the first year to 283.
Yes, because my
56 was the 265.
it was a 265. 55 and 56 were the 265.
265s.
Yeah. And I think the early 57s.
Yeah, 57. They come out with the 283.
Yeah, during the model year.
All right, we got to go. Is that what you're telling me? All right, Paul Zangari, thank you for stopping by and spending a half an hour with Bob.
It's been fun.
We'll do it again.
I hope so.
All right,
Thanks,
thank
Bob.
you.
All right.
And thank you, folks, for coming back. You're back. Bob's back.
There he
Spent an hour with Bob. And thank you very much. Until next time, see you.